All right, guys. So we're already closing in on an hour. So I want to get to these rookie comps because I could hang out here all night with you guys, read your comments, continue to go back and forth. But I want to get to these rookie comps because I'm actually like really excited about this one. This one kind of caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did watch tape on Hendon Hooker before any of this, but the tape that I watched was specifically from like the QB school and watching him critique Hendon Hooker. And so he was high on him in certain areas, but then he's also like was like dinging him for the fact that like the offense that Tennessee ran and using that kind of against him as like as a question mark of like I'm not sure how good he is. And so for me, that kind of gave me like a bad taste in regards to Hendon Hooker because it's like, well, if you're only a system quarterback, what if the system that you're going to run in Detroit, or not even just in Detroit, because we hadn't even drafted him yet, but who knows if the system that you're going to run in the NFL is actually going to lend itself to your skill set? Well, doing a deep dive, watching his actual game tape for myself, nobody else's commentary, literally just looking at it with my own two eyes and making observations, I was absolutely blown away, right? Truly, truly blown away. I can see, well, I ain't gonna say that. I don't know why Luke says that he's Patrick Mahomes, but I see why Luke is so high on him. Hendon Hooker does things at the quarterback position or did things at the quarterback position in Tennessee that would make you think that if he didn't have a torn ACL and was still 25, he would have went in the first round. And I'm kind of convinced after watching his tape and everything, I'm convinced that the Lions would have taken him at 18 instead of Jack Campbell. I think they still would have taken Gibbs because if Holmes is saying Gibbs was their number one guy, I will tend to believe him. But I think if you had a healthy Hendon Hooker going through the draft process and he, for whatever reason, had fallen because of his age, because I do think people would have passed on him just because of the simple fact that he's 25. I really do. If he would have fell to 18, I'm so convinced now more than ever that the Lions would have taken him at 18. But my ceiling for Hendon Hooker, and you guys gonna have to tell me in the chat if I'm crazy or not. Please tell me if I'm crazy. My ceiling for Hendon Hooker is Joe Burrow. I from the first clip that for the first game that I watched, which was Tennessee versus Alabama this past year. Oh my God. Did it looked like Tennessee was playing Madden on rookie. That's how crazy those first few plays that Hendon Hooker has in that game, that's how crazy they are. The throws that he was making, I was sitting here like there's first of all with so much ease, right? There's not a lot of wind up in the throw. It's not this ridiculous like drop back. It's literally shotgun, step, sees a guy open and just deep shot. And I'm like, that's not supposed to happen to Alabama. There's not many teams that I've watched that just made Alabama's defense just look average. And in Hendon Hooker in that Tennessee offense was lighting him up. And in the end, for me, because Super Saiyan Lion was good with you, man. First of all, you jumped in and just you gonna hit me with a hell no. Like I don't even get a what up, Meko first. Like I got hell no off the start. I thought we were better than that. But I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why, because it's not just the big throws, right? Um, I had a couple notes down as far as again why I think Hendon Hooker is like that good, why I would give him that comp. First of all, it's let's start with the arm, right? Cannon, right? He was injured, so he didn't get a chance to showcase it in pro days or at the combine, excuse me, or any of those things. But when you watch him in the game, Tennessee is able to run the offense they were able to run because Hendon Hooker can make those throws easily. Again, it's not like he doesn't have to throw his entire body into it. It's not this ridiculous windup. It is effortless for him to be able to hit these deep shots. And I just like when you sit there and you watch it, we were just like, dude, if Hendon Hooker was 21, we would have been talking about him going first overall over Bryce Young. Like that's how talented he looked in those moments. He can literally, so again, cannon of arm. I believe like some of the throws that he was making, like he can literally get you a touchdown from anywhere. Anywhere on the field, if he gets a man open deep, count it as 6. Like he's almost automatic in that sense. Um, I think he has great poise in the pocket, right? Again, some of it is the nature of Tennessee's offense, but there are games you can watch, the Georgia game, you can watch the Alabama game, you can watch the LSU game or the Florida game where there is pressure coming in on him and he'll wait as long as he can and then he'll make an escape or he'll make a really tough throw even though he has pressure in his face. Like he doesn't get rattled. And if you guys have seen any of my content that I was doing over at the Questionable podcast when we used to talk about Jared Goff, one of my biggest gripes about Jared Goff, specifically in his first year here, was that Jared doesn't handle pressure well. The best way to beat Jared Goff is to get pressure around him because he will fold. He doesn't know how to escape the pocket well. He doesn't like to make throws with people in his face. He was a little bit better at that this past year, but for the most part, like that still remains true. Look at the New England game. They got pressure on him, they got in his face, and he unraveled. And trust me, I get that that's true for most quarterbacks, but there are other quarterbacks like Hendon Hooker, like Joe Burrow, where when pressure starts to come in on them, they still have enough poise and enough like control of themselves emotionally to be able to make you know, a highly contested throw down the field. Um, let me get some of your guys' feedback to my initial thought um about Hendon Hooker being comp to Joe Burrow. Steve was saying that's dope because that's who I compared Hooker to. Okay, so I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. Even his career has resembled Burrow. Still, he got hurt last season. Big T saying Hooker is a football player, Dan and Brad type of guy. I agree. Tony Chase, Hooker is more decisive than Goff. I again, some of that I think is the nature of Tennessee's offense. They make it very easy on him to catch, make reads, and make the proper throw. And I that may not be like the ideal quarterback for most teams, but for a team like the Lions with Ben Johnson, who I think literally had to do that for Jared Goff, had to make things easy on him so that he didn't have to do too much thinking, so that he didn't have to do too much, patting the ball in the pocket, that he could actually make, simple dropbacks and throws. This will be ideal for Hendon Hooker for years to come. Uh, Perry Ball saying Holmes was willing to take the risk. The Rams did the same with Todd Gurley. I mean, like, I'm assuming you mean that in regards to Jahmyr Gibbs. And yeah, like it paid off for them, so hopefully it pays off in the same way. There goes my what up. Super Saiyan Line was good with you, man. Appreciate you coming by. Um, Mark LeBay saying, I think it's a good risk, but don't get carried away. Most teams don't think he has the potential to be a top 10 QB, or they would have drafted him in the first despite an ACL. I agree with you. So when I get to his floor, because I like it's not just like his ceiling is his ceiling. That's why we have ceilings and floors for players. And I think that's why we should always look at players in that context of like you have a ceiling and you have a floor. The reason Hendon Hooker went in the third round versus like even the second, like Will Levis, is that there are things in his game that you can look at and be like, oh, okay, that's probably what kept him from being drafted in the first round. But I do think for the most part, his ACL injury and his age and a couple of these like limiters in his game, yes, is what kind of caused him to fall to the third round. I think if he doesn't have the ACL, and I think if he's 3 years younger, so if he's 22, you probably still see him get drafted at the end of the first round, even with the things that he's not good at. Just because the things that he's so good at, people would have been in love with, and they would have done the same thing they do with every other quarterback that has a great depth of talent, where it's like, oh, I can fix X, Y, and Z, right? People easily explain away that they can fix things when you believe that you have the time constraint to do so. Well, with a quarterback that's already 25 and that's coming off an ACL, you're losing a year. So the developmental window is smaller for Hendon Hooker, and some teams I don't think were comfortable with that, even in the second round. So, and the Lions got him near the top of the third, so it's not like he went deep into the third before he got picked. Big T saying he can throw deep and make great decisions, read defenses, and he can literally do everything. People sleeping on Hendon Hooker. Also saying he agrees with me. Appreciate that. Um, let me see who else we got in here. John Fisher saying, I saw JG take a few on the chin this past season to make a big throw. And he did. Like, I'm not saying that he can't, but I still don't think it's his strong suit. I still think because of I don't think Jared Goff has Hendon Hooker's arm, and I still think you can easily rattle him because he's not as mobile as Hendon Hooker. So if you're able to get pressure around him, you still have a much high I think you have a much higher chance of him doing something like stupid with the ball, whether it be a fumble or just making an errant pass that he shouldn't make. Um, Super Saiyan Lion saying, "Do you think Hooker is better than Pickett?" I do. I do think he's better than Kenny Pickett. Absolutely. Um, and I think again he would have gone in the first round had it not been for an ACL injury and him being 25. I think he's again if he's 23, 22, like he's drafted at the end of the first round. He's probably like I said, I think he gets picked by the Lions at 18. I really do. Um Debt fan man saying if Hooker hits the expected ceiling, it would eliminate the future extension need for golf, opening a window for a QB trade and sign. Um Let his cap hit us before Hook's contract. And this is why somebody has said it early in the stream about again, because we talked about trading for Quentin Williams, and this is a reason why I would. Because what you see in Hendon Hooker's ceiling is worth it if he can if during training camp, if during his redshirt year, if he's showing you enough signs that he's picking up the game mentally, if he's showing his ability to understand offensive concepts, understand checks and reads and all of that type of stuff, I think there's enough there for you to be like, "Yo, we can take this gamble because this kid will be ready." And I say kid, he'll be 26 next year. Like this grown man is ready to lead a team. Um, and he has the physical tools to do so as a passer, like not just as a runner, because what he's able to do running the ball is also great. He can still hurt you with his legs. He's not Justin Fields or anything like that, but he's very Joe Burrow like where he can take an open lane. He can take a QB draw if everybody for some reason had fallen asleep and forgot like, oh, he runs. He'll go out there and he'll get you 10, 12 yards off of a QB draw. Right? You can run halfback options type of stuff. You can run QB reads and things like that. He'll be solid in QB sneak situations because he's just a little bit better with his legs. Um, some other things that he's really good at. He has good timing on his routes, right? I think again, I it's both a pro and a con of Tennessee's offense. Everything is timing based. Everything is like, hey, this person should be open on this route, so wait for them and then make this throw. Well, he's good at that. He's good at understanding timing and understanding, okay, this guy should be coming open at this time and delivering the ball at that exact time. And then the other thing that you love and you absolutely need in a quarterback is from everything that we've heard about Hendon Hooker, he is a great leader. He is a great teammate. He's the type of guy. Hell, I heard it from minicamp that like he's not practicing, he's not able to engage or participate. He's not able to participate in rookie minicamp, but he's still like cheering on the guys, giving guys high fives as they kind of come in off the season. Um, or off the field after like certain drills and things of that nature. So I think there's a lot of like upside to a Hendon Hooker in that regard. So it's like he has the physical tools. He can play the position at a high level and he has the leadership characteristics that you want in a franchise quarterback. It's a thing that, like, again, it's the mental part. It's like, can he translate from what they did at Tennessee to what we do in the NFL? Because everything is faster. And it's like, and this is the thing that I also wanted to say. I say that about Hendon Hooker, but that's true about every rookie quarterback. The same thing is going to be said about Bryce Young. The same thing is going to be said or is being said about CJ Stroud. The same thing is going to be said about Anthony Richardson. These guys clearly have the physical tools to do so. They have to adjust mentally to the game. And I just have a strong feeling that Hendon Hooker can do that, right? He's mature enough, he understands. I'm sure he's hearing it and seeing it in the media about his age, so he understands like his window of opportunity and his The amount of errors he can make are very small. If he wants to be a starting quarterback in this league, he has to get this offense down. And I think if he gets the offense down and he's healthy, yeah, I think he could beat Jared Goff for the starting quarterback job. I genuinely believe that if all of these things check themselves off and he plays to the capability of his ceiling, the only thing Jared Goff would be able to do to keep Hendon Hooker from taking his job is win the Super Bowl. In my opinion, that is all Jared Goff would be able to do to be able to hold off Hendon Hooker based off of the potential that I see. Um, so with that said, I know I've gone on and I probably irritated some of you with my talk of what his ceiling could be. John Fisher saying, but I still think Hooker's ceiling is higher. Just think Goff's processing and system understanding is better and will be this year and next at least. It definitely will be this year, right? Next year, next year we'll have to see because literally, like that's all Hendon Hooker is going to have time to do is learn the system. So you're getting a guy that's going to spend every day on this team learning the system, spending time with Mark Brunell, spending time with JT Barrett, spending time with Ben Johnson, learning the offense, watching Jared Goff perform and prepare. And then like I just think his physical tools are better. I genuinely do. I think his physical tools are better than Goff's. And so you get that into a camp battle setting. If Dan Campbell is going to be true to his word and that the best guys will play, I have a hard time seeing how Hendon Hooker doesn't beat him out for the job in camp. I really do. I have a much um harder time for that. Mark, okay, listen, Mark, I'm gonna challenge you on this. Hooker's comp is Goff with a better arm and mobility. If he has a better arm and mobility, he's not Jared Goff at this point. He's no longer Jared Goff because that is why Jared Goff is who he is. He's functional in a system. His arm is somewhere between average and like I'll say it's average. I don't want to be disrespectful. It's average, right? And his mobility is non-existent. If you add mobility and you add a much better arm, he's no longer Jared Goff. He's somebody else. And in my mind, he's Joe Burrow at that point. Um, all right. So that's who we got at the ceiling. So who is his floor? So this goes back to what Mark was saying that like, hey, if teams believed in him so much, if his ceiling was truly that, he wouldn't have fell to the third round. And this is the thing. He does have weaknesses in his game. There are things in his game that you just kind of can't ignore. And when you look at his floor and you look at how he if again, we always have to look at least I do. I look at the floor as you're not able to build upon the things that you did in college. If he's not able to build upon the things he did in college, to me, you're looking at Tyrod Taylor for Hendon Hooker, right? He will be a bigger version of Tyrod Taylor, where Tyrod Taylor is a guy who has started for teams on, in situations. He has come in, he's won games, he's put together some great moments for teams, and he's looked very capable of leading a team, but not quite good enough to be like a franchise quarterback. And this is where Luke and I disagree because Luke, I think, believes that Hendon Hooker's floor is Dak Prescott. Well, Dak Prescott is still a franchise quarterback. And for me, that's not what I see Hendon Hooker as. Hendon Hooker is either he'll end up being one of the best quarterbacks in the league, a la Joe Burrow, or he's going to be just one of the best backup quarterbacks that you can get in the league, where it's like everybody would want Hendon Hooker on their team because they know they're getting a professional. They know they're getting somebody that can come in and handle their offense and be able to perform at a high level when called upon. But the reason why this is his floor is because there are a couple things that Hendon Hooker doesn't do well. So, like I said, he has great poise in the pocket, but at the same time, because again, I do chalk more of this up to Tennessee's system because he is so focused on making the reads that he has to make in the passing game. He's expecting guys to get open at a certain point in time. He sometimes misreads blitzes. And so that causes him to take unnecessary sacks where it's like, yo, if you had identified that blitzer ahead of time, you probably could have shifted, you could have shifted coverage, you could have audibled into a different play. And it's just like that happens a little too frequently. Specifically, if you look at the LSU tape, if you look at the Georgia tape, they really kind of rattle him with like this pressure from different places. And I think because Hendon Hooker was in a system that was so just like ironclad that he had to make these reads at this time, you weren't able to see if he was able to again adjust to those things. Um One other issue that he kind of has, so while he is mobile, he's definitely more mobile than a Jared Goff or some of these more traditional pocket passers. He's not great at making throws on the run. Like he can escape the pocket, but a lot of these like escape the pockets and then he has to make a throw across his body type of stuff doesn't do very well. They're either too high, they're too low. They're just like his teammates maybe just aren't expecting the ball to come at him the way they are. And so that's where you kind of get this like component where it's like, okay, that part of his game has to kind of get better. Um, but no, like I think in the sense of where Joe Burrow or sorry, now you got me saying Joe Burrow, and where Hendon Hooker's floor is, like that's another thing that he just doesn't do well is throw on the run. Um, he like again, while he has this strong arm, he has the same thing that plagues a lot of quarterbacks that have strong arms, which is occasionally like that accuracy goes out the window on some of these deep throws or on some of these throws that should be like somewhat routine, and you're just like, hey, why why weren't you able to hit that throw um, more consistently? I think it specifically shows up across the middle when he has to make passes. Like again, if he's throwing a slant, cool. But if he was running like some of these dig routes that they ran at Tennessee, he was struggling to hit with some consistency. Again, I specifically would have you guys look at like the LSU game and the Georgia game where they weren't allowing Hendon Hooker to take a lot of deep shots. They played a lot of like really tight man um on the defensive end, and he has to make these really like precise throws to guys across the middle. And it's like these guys are open, or he could make these throws if he can just place the ball in the right spot. But he just didn't do it consistently enough for me to be like, okay, or at least he did it inconsistent enough for me to sit there and be like, you know what, that's not a strong suit of his. Um, and lastly, again, coming from the system that he came from, you have to wonder, can he make his progressions fast enough? Watch his tape, you will notice that there's a lot of times wherever like whichever way Hendon Hooker's head starts looking, so if he's looking at the left side of the field, he rarely comes back right. He rarely is going from left to middle to right. He will go from left and it's either high, low, and then he's running. The NFL, you're going to have to make more reads than that. You're going to have to, and you're just going to have to be faster. You're going to have to go left, right, middle, check down, whatever, and be able to process this, be able to process those things quicker so that you can keep your offense going. And if you can't do that, you're going to find yourself in situations where you're taking sacks, where you're getting strip fumbles, and or just overall making bad throws. Those are concerns that I have for Hendon Hooker. And again, this is what would make his floor kind of rear its ugly head. But the things that he does well, right? Like, while I'm concerned about his floor, what he does well, he does it so consistently. And it really does become when you hear Dan Campbell talk about, like, hey, we just got to get him. He has to learn the NFL game. That to me is like the only thing that's like that is going to make or break Hendon Hooker's career. If he can't adjust to NFL speed, if he can't adjust to NFL defenses, he is going to be a backup quarterback, a highly sought after one that could be really effective for you in the event that your quarterback goes down. But he will have his limitations.